Hey Steven, how's it going?
Ariel, what's up, buddy?
Not too much. I'm a little early, but connected me right in.
Well, whatever. You're here for 420. Sorry. Let me introduce you for a second here before people are concerned. Ariel Glinter, everybody. He's you could call him like the lawyer for the joint, even though he's like not practicing lawyer, but he is a lawyer, or just the guy for the joint. I don't know. He's the guy.
Yeah, pretty much. That describes it perfectly.
So Ariel is our guest. He's going to be talking about just a little bit about the retail market. The joint is a head shop that's been here in Winnipeg. They've got lots of locations. They started off with just one. Where was the original one? Was it Meadowwood, or was it or not Meadowwood? Pemina, or
It was St. Anne's Road, actually. It's not even
was
open.
it St. Anne's?
Yeah, it was the original St. Anne's location, which we closed when we opened St. Mary's and yeah, around that time.
Okay. I remember that time. Okay, so yeah, so they've gone from just having that one original store to what are you in, like? Are you in 4 provinces?
Retail in 3 provinces right now. Hopefully Ontario coming soon. Stay tuned.
There you go. Okay, so he's going to be talking about all that kind of stuff in a few minutes here. Ariel, if you just joined us, I was just cleaning my Shatterizer, and I took the easy approach and just wiped it all off on my hands. And then it made my hands a lot messier than I thought. So if I'm going like this, you know why.
Got it.
But I don't know, did you just puff one or what?
Yeah, I got ready right before I came on.
All right.
I got some medicated tea with me too, so good for a while here.
Ooh, that's a good one. I should have made some medicated tea. That's a good idea. I made some medicated stew.
Ooh, that sounds delicious.
Yeah, I slow cooked it the other day, and I prepared it so we could I could have it like ready to go when I was microwaving between breaks here. So it's delicious. Although I gotta tell you, I've been like snacking on this bowl of gummies I made. I don't know how many I've had, but a few. That's for sure. So I don't know how much of that edible stew I want to eat too quickly, because I might be sleeping in an hour.
Yeah, you still got a ways to go here if you want to hit every time.
I know. I got what is this? This is the 7th hour I'm in.
Wow.
It's not bad.
It's a marathon for sure. I know a lot of people are doing it today.
Yeah, it's weird actually. So like, funny story. I got a phone call from someone from the Winnipeg Sun, and they're like, "Oh, Steve, you're not at the Ledge," and I'm like, "No, why would we be at the, like? I sent emails to all you people." And then they're like, "Oh, okay." And then they let me go. And then he calls me back like an hour later, and he's like, "You're still doing that live stream?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm still doing the fucking live stream." And he's like, "Oh, well, we need to get a shot of that, and I need a little interview from you." I'm like, "Okay, well, here's the interview part, but if you want a shot of me, you either have to take a screenshot of this live stream or come here. I can't leave." So it's just, I don't know. I don't know why they would have thought people would be at the Ledge.
That's a good question. I wish everybody showed up.
I mean, I don't know why they would. I also don't know why the media wouldn't be more. Okay. I get that today is a somber day in Canada. Okay, I get that. But I hope that's not the main source of every, like, I mean, the news has been focused on COVID for so long that it's nice to hear like positive stories. So if they're just saturating the airways with, you know, COVID, 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 and now all CBC and CTV is going to be covering is death, 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 I feel like this kind of event or other coverage of 420 really could be like the one bright spot in today's news coverage, but we'll see where things go.
Well, I think one of the bright spots in general is just people finding new ways to continue socializing the way that they used to. And so I think 420 during COVID is another good way to show that it's possible in this context as well. I mean, cannabis users have always been good at finding creative ways to socialize, that's for sure, and not stop. So it makes sense to me. I've seen a lot of Zoom sessions and other things like that going on, and I know that 420 Vancouver and other people are also doing live streams today, and so I wouldn't be surprised to see it more going forward, even once this ends as well.
Well, yeah, it might be, a birth of a new type of interaction with the public, right? Instead of just Instagram, posts and shit, like it's an actual, working with the community and on a face-to-face or screen-to-screen level. So it's really neat. It's neat to see that. Sorry, just grabbing my phone here so I keep track of the time. Okay, so just give me a second here, Ariel, so I can do some housekeeping. So if you've been following this conversation, or if you know anything about the joint, this is where your trivia answers come in. So we just touched on it, and I hope you were listening, because if you weren't, you need to go do some research. I don't know how that'll work, but try it. For those of you who are listening, this will be easy. Our next prize giveaway is a joint prize pack of some kind. It's usually filled with like a joint prize pack of some kind. But yeah, Ariel assured me he'd put something nice together, so I don't know what's in it, but it'll be good. But we're going to do a prize giveaway. Maybe Ariel can talk about it later if he's got some ideas. But the question is, how you can win this is, where was the joint's original location? Where was it? I mean, you don't have to give me the specific address, but a street would be good. I think that's going to be the qualifier. We want the street name. So if you could do that, that's the question. First person, send me an answer to winnipeg420oc@gmail.com. That's winnipeg420, the letter O, the letter C, stands for organizing committee, at gmail.com. First person to send the answer to that question, which street was the joint's first location at, wins the joint prize pack. Cool? Cool. Got it? Bingo. All right. So, housekeeping done. Ariel Glinter, guy from the joint, lawyer from the joint, just the guy on the couch, guy in the chair. I don't know, man. I could do this all day. How's it going, buddy?
Sounds like you have a good today, Steven.
You fucking literal bastard. Awesome. How you been, man? You good?
I've been as good as you can be these days. It's pretty much life is normal. I work a lot from home as it is, and so things have changed surprisingly little, other than just going outside slightly less than usual. But I'm lucky that way, where I already was in a good position. I know for a lot of people it's changed a lot more, and they're suddenly consuming a lot more cannabis, for example, which I too am not I'm kind of guilty of. I know my tolerance has definitely gone up this 420 than it was previous 420s.
I definitely agree with that, man. I'll tell you, I won't need to smoke weed tomorrow. I guarantee it. I'm gonna be good all day, just coasting. So it's nice to see. I mean, like you mentioned though, coping, right? It's I think it's a better replacement, even just as a straight up admission to a coping mechanism. It's much healthier than food, binging or alcohol or something. So, yeah, I think it's the saving grace towards how you stave off the insanity of COVID.
Well, I think it's one of the most interesting things is that it's such an option at all now. I mean, couple years ago, or 3 years ago, you needed to have a medical card and you were tied to a single licensed producer, and that would have been your supply for 420, right? And now it's an essential service in pretty much every province. For recreational purposes, it's easier to buy recreational cannabis than medical cannabis now. It's kind of, it's a lot to think about that's happened in 3 years. And I guess this situation has just brought it home how much change can happen so quickly.
Well, yeah, it really is an interesting like dichotomy there from like where we were to where we are in such a, like you're saying, it's such an exponential factor. Like it was 5 years ago, we had, you know, Trudeau barely talking about how legalization really fit into their platform. And now we live under the regime that's failed. Well, not failed, but like, you know, has flaws. And we're already living under it. That's a pretty quick turnaround, I think.
I wouldn't say it's failed. I'd say it's in a slow process of succeeding.
Right. That's why I correct my words.
The process is very slow, though.
It really is. So if you want to maybe, for those of you out there listening who don't necessarily know the joint, Ariel, if you want to maybe give us a kind of an overview of like what you guys do, you know, your stores, where your retail is, you know, maybe just how you guys grew from you know, that Winnipeg store to what you are now.
Well, it's a pretty average small town, small business story, I guess. It's a single store, a couple of friends graduated high school together, got together, and while they were in university, and decided to open a company, and it became the Joint, and the Joint grew, and went from one store to a couple in Winnipeg, and then slowly expanded in 2007 in Winnipeg, and then in 2011 we opened our first location in Saskatchewan, and just a couple of years ago, I think it was end of 2016 or early 2017, we opened our first store in Alberta. And so we've mainly just been a cannabis accessory store, or a head shop as most used to know them. And over time, we expanded and started selling more products like vaping products and like e-cigarettes and other things like cigars, and the business grew naturally. We never went public, or except to, you know, remained very small, very independent, and just grew naturally. And that's kind of where we were at when Justin Trudeau got elected on a platform to legalize cannabis in Canada. And that's when we simply kept growing and kept doing things we were doing and kept selling accessories. And as markets opened up, we won one of the original licenses in Saskatchewan and operated a cannabis store in Assiniboia, Saskatchewan there. And we opened a cannabis store in Sherwood Park, Alberta. And we're just going to expand as markets open. We currently operate about 11 stores across 3 provinces and hopefully more. And we have a website, thejointcannabis.ca, where we sell cannabis or accessories depending on what we're allowed to do in each province.
I like that, depending, you know. That's good though. I mean, you have such a broad market share now in different provinces. It's nice to see that local one store now. You know, when I see that big yellow and black The Joint, you know, smashed across the building or something, I'm like proud. You know, like it's nice. It's a good success story, especially from, like, I know, I mean, some of you our listeners and viewers out there may not be familiar with it, but you know, you guys were throwing a few curveballs over the years. Winnipeg wasn't necessarily always the head shop capital of Manitoba, but you know, it's nice to see that you guys have come through the adversity and you're stronger for it.
Yeah, well, we've always made sure to play by whatever rules were possible to play by. At the time, we never sold cannabis, only accessories. So even though we still got hassled for that, it was difficult to make those kind of problems stick. We were always very careful, always are careful to, not sell to minors and very obvious things like that. And I think the fact that we've been able to successfully obtain retail cannabis licenses in multiple provinces now speaks to the fact that we've been above board to the extent that the government trusts us to follow the rules now. And we do follow the rules now. So with that being said, we also try to serve our consumers as best as possible within those rules and make sure that we have the products that they expect to and want to purchase. So it's difficult. It can be very difficult playing that line, but we feel we do it as best as possible.
No, that's awesome. I mean, the fact that you, like you're saying, you've been able to obtain these licenses and these permits or whatever they might be in other provinces, it shows that you guys are this force to be reckoned with, and that you are a credible standing organization in the industry, and that you have a voice. And that's awesome. Can you go into a little bit more detail maybe on some of the nuances maybe that you have to deal with from province to province, having different retail licenses in different provinces? And is there a province or a model that you guys best find works well for you?
For sure. That's a very good question. And Canada's legalization project has been very interesting, specifically because it gave an opportunity for every province to do something slightly different. And while it's resulted in a lot of work for companies like ours that are trying to do the same business activity just in different provinces and have to get different licenses through different authorities and submit the same things at the same time, to different times to different people. It's a bit of extra work and time. At the same time, it's very interesting to see what happens and which provinces do better than others as a result of
yeah, I guess you get to see that, right?
So for example, right now, Manitoba and Saskatchewan are the only provinces that allow private retailers to sell cannabis online at all. In Alberta and Ontario, they don't. So
Sorry. Can you repeat that again? You kind of cut up at the end of that. They don't
allow private retail stores to sell cannabis online.
Online. Oh, okay.
So in Alberta, it's the AGLC that is the only online cannabis retailer. In Ontario, it's the OCS. They have the only website that can sell online. The stores are limited to click and collect, if anything. They can't do delivery. So that's a big difference, and it makes a big difference. In Saskatchewan, you have one store, but you can offer your branded services throughout the entire province through your website, and you can have it delivered through any way you want, Canada Post, Purolator, or Pineapple Express, or anything you want. So that gives retailers the ability to differentiate themselves and be more competitive with each other, I guess. In Ontario and Alberta, that's really not possible, and so the focus has to be much more on walking customers, and location is far more important, obviously. So that's a big difference.
Now, how do you find? I mean, I want to ask you specifically about Alberta, because there is the overabundance of stores there per capita based on the population. So how do you find the market there? Do you find that where you are is a really great location? Are you guys oversaturated and like pushing other companies out of the market? Like how's that going out there? There's like Florida stores in that damn province.
Well, I think that it's definitely still too early to really answer those questions definitively.
Fair enough.
You're definitely right in that a lot of stores got opened up very quickly, and in Alberta, it was kind of people picked locations before anybody really opened a store, so no one knew where anybody else was going, and you ended up with a lot of stores right next to each other in some locations. But it's not even that there's too many stores, it's that some of them are just in the wrong locations.
Right.
Skirting them. But other than that, I think they will be able to support quite a few stores at the end of the day. And right now you also have a lot of retail operators who have never operated a retail store before. It was the first market to really open for retail operator licenses. And so you had a lot of people who threw their hat in the ring, who have maybe had second thoughts And so again, it's a little early. It's probably going to be another couple of years before you can tell, but it's quite obvious that they have more stores. The prices are very different. The consumer behavior is different. People know a lot more brands. They expect a lot more information, and they're generally a lot more informed at this point, just because they've had such better access.
You know, I mean, I think that's a good point you make, is that because of the overabundance, you almost get a better variety, let's say, of maybe not just cannabis options, but like you're saying, the interactions, the information, the tips, maybe, you know, like just the customer service level, a different perspective. It's an interesting. I wouldn't even have thought about that, actually. That's a good point you make.
It definitely forces retailers to be more competitive and to offer better services than they otherwise would have to if they had entire markets to themselves, which has happened in some parts of the country. And some of those retailers have definitely noticed drop-offs in sales when the market has opened up and more options have become available, because they weren't focused on what consumers actually wanted. So Alberta's forced a lot of operators to really mature really quickly and dial in exactly what their offerings are to differentiate themselves.
Now, when you see, like I know it's a little bit of kind of a nuanced question, and you might tell me the same thing, that you got to wait for the numbers to kind of roll in. But do you find that you're experiencing, like, let's say, is Saskatchewan buying more weed, you know, like, let's say on average than Alberta is, or like, is it pretty much broad across the board? Everybody loves weed in Canada.
I think the numbers have been posted by Stats Canada in terms of which provinces are buying more legal cannabis and less legal cannabis. And I think it's clear that the provinces with more stores are selling more legal cannabis per capita. A lot has to do with easy access.
Right.
I think there's been less online sales than originally thought, because it's one of those things that people want to buy in the moment, right? They don't want to plan ahead for it. So access has definitely determined, you know, how much cannabis is bought. Also, again, it's like if you're the only person with a legal store in a certain town, you're going to notice more sales than even if you're in a big city with 8 stores around you. So it's
for sure.
It's definitely, I think the cannabis market has definitely been underestimated by pretty much every government authority to date. In that sense, I think the cannabis market in Canada is about as big as the original estimates were, but the vast majority still remains in the informal market, unregulated market, and whatever you want to call it.
Like the informal market. That was some classy shit right there, Earl.
I took it from someone else. I can't remember who I did look it up.
No, I now I want to say that. Is this black market weed? No, this is the informal market.
Yeah, I think if you look at the sales numbers, I don't think we've cracked more than maybe 30% of market share, if that, 20 to 30% if we're lucky. And honestly, compared to the U.S. states that went legal, that's pretty good for the time frame. But there's still a long way to go. Although I can say definitely from a retail side, we've seen the prices drop dramatically in the last 6 months, which I'm sure a lot of people have noticed. If they've been buying legal cannabis, it's now very normal to see $20, $25 on shop, where it was unheard of up until recently.
Yeah, I know that a lot of that, like the house brands have those cheap 8s, where it's 20, $25, and that's a pretty reasonable price for a decent weed. I mean, it's granted the weed isn't always the best at that price, but you know, it's still that price.
Not the best, but the people buying it know what they're getting, and I think it's at the point where it's good enough. Hopefully it'll continue to get better, but in Alberta we've got Aurora selling 15-gram packs, I think, for about $80 retail. In Saskatchewan we've got certain companies selling ounces or 28 grams for $130, $140, so again lower than the average price of about $160 an ounce that you see in the black market a lot of times. So they're getting there. Not a lot of products, and they sell out they sell out very quickly.
Well,
so
it's a lot, right?
There is a market though. Once you hit it, once those prices start hitting shelves, I think you'll see a larger turnover from the black market over time.
No, I think you're right. That's actually kind of touches on the next question I wanted to ask you about. Is that I know from province to province, there's different regulations regarding not only the retail sales and what you can do, but have you, in the provinces that you guys are established in right now, has there been an acceptance or an allowance by the governments to do things like cannabis consumption or cannabis, gardens, if you will, let's say at a festival or something like that? Have you run into that?
Us personally, not yet. I do know that in British Columbia, there's at least one municipality that started accepting cannabis submissions to their annual annual farmers market type deal. So those are slowly starting to happen. But more importantly, I know cities like Edmonton and Calgary have begun discussions about cannabis consumption bylaws, and the discussions I know have started. Ontario, they've asked for input from potential operators and the public as the potential bylaws. A lot of it would have to be locally regulated the same way bars are. So it's not just a provincial thing. It would very much be city to city oriented. But the discussions are happening. As to how long it'll take or when we'll see them, I don't know, but I would expect somewhere in Canada within the next couple of years for sure.
Well, I know specifically, like I had Sasha Hawk on from Hempfest a little earlier, and he was saying that their event planned for Calgary Olympic Park in September, it seems like it's gone through all the vetting and the OK process to have consumption.
It's possible. I know that it's the first licenses you'll probably see will be like that, where it's like tied to an event kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or it's
like it. I think it's the industry aspect of it, because there's going to be lots of LPs and stuff. So.
Yeah, and the consumption in a licensed event, I think, will come first. The same way you can have like licensed drinking at a wedding social or something. I think those types of permissions will be easier to give than setting up a business licensing strategy for actual consumption lounges or something, which might take.
Right. No, I hear that, and that's kind of like because you're here in Manitoba, like I am. I'm really hoping, excuse me, that over the next little while, especially specifically because of some changes to the wording in our budget, and I'm assuming that the Palliser government here locally will be more willing to open up more avenues of income streams after the whole COVID thing. So, consumption maybe not, the way we want it to, but it's coming somehow. So I think that's what we have to look forward to here in the province, because of wording through the budget and things like that. But I think it's good for people like you and people like me, and as these people in the industry, to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to ensure that happens without, like your worry is, rocking the boat too much. But still making sure that we get those things eventually, not drawn out over years, and hopefully they happen more expeditiously than we dread. So.
I agree 100%, and I do think that they will happen, and we can definitely advocate that they happen sooner rather than later, and that they have rules that make sense for the communities that they're trying to serve, right? It doesn't make sense to have consumption lounges if the only products you're allowed to consume in them are products that nobody wants to consume at all. So I think that there is definitely still questions that need to be answered with respect to those things, and we'll have to see what happens, and hopefully, like you said, any economic activity, any legal economic activity is definitely something governments are going to want to pursue.
Yeah.
And this is as good an opportunity as any.
A side note here, I see the joint 420 sale sign there.
Yeah, for sure.
That's subtle, by the way. It's like the size of your face. What's that about?
Well, I figured you got to take advantage of every opportunity you have, right? So we do have a 420 sale going on right now on for online delivery and pickup, click and collect where available, up to 40% off. Jointcannabis.ca for details. Between April 19th and April 26th, so you got some time.
Whoa, 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 whoa! Up to 40% off.
That is correct.
Is that like just like is that like just specific glass, or is that like possibly across the whole store?
It's 420, right? So it's pretty much everything is some percent off. Not every 40% off, but pretty much everything is on sale.
That's awesome. That is awesome. I don't know if any of you guys have seen it in the past. I'm sure some of you loyal guys out there, but the joint always donates a really good prize for us. Do you remember that box of matches you guys gave me? Like, yeah. I don't know, like 5 years ago at least. When I was like, what the fuck are we going to do with all these matches? And you're like, I don't know what we're going to do with all these matches. Like, but yeah, I was like throwing them at people. Like, so it's good. You guys have always committed and helped out the cause. And 420 has always been something that you guys have always been really good at, not only helping like just the committee and stuff, like getting out stuff, but always your stores were just like bumping on 420. Like, just don't even. If I wasn't at 420, I wouldn't even bother going to the store because I'd be like, fuck this, I'm not getting in there. I'm not fighting two people for lineups now because it was busy, man. That's good.
Yeah, it did used to be that way. We used to have hot dog carts and everything at the stores because there were those kind of crowds. But that's one of the things that's changed a little bit post legalization, I guess. Before 420 was kind of more a time where people, you know, the one time of the year where they would be, I guess, more open about their cannabis use, if anything else. Right. Where now it's be as open as you want, whenever you want, about your cannabis use, which is a great thing. But it also, I guess, takes away some of the focus from 420 specifically. So the industry still treats it very, very seriously. But we'll have, again, it remains to be seen how big of a thing it remains going forward for consumers. I think, again, it's up to us partly to keep having these events and keep making a reason for it.
Oh, I agree. You know, and that's, excuse me, specifically where people like, you know, yourself and some of my other guests today really, you know, have a place in this movement, in this industry still, to, you know, educate people on yes, we've got these wins, and yes, you know, that's great, and yes, things change over time, but it doesn't end, you know, like it doesn't have to just fall away. I mean, my great comparison is with Pride. You know, Pride in its infancy was a small group of people, and then as legalization of gay marriage and stuff happened, and acceptance in society, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. It didn't fall away once gay marriage was accepted, you know, and embraced by more people, where you've got fucking the RBC trolley and shit now, you know, like awesome, 50,000 people, like cool, right? So I think that the important thing is keeping our message going as well, that yes, this is the culture, yes, you know, persecution in the past, still not great right now, but fix it in the future. And it'll change itself, like you're saying. It may not be the good old civil disobedience protest signs and big, you know, clouds, but maybe more festival-like with retail cannabis consumption and music and, you know, food vendors and all that kind of stuff, like we were getting just as legalization happened. So I'm hoping 420 will become a marquee event for retail cannabis consumption in Canada, or in Manitoba specifically, just like it would be for Jazz Fest or, you know, the Fringe Festival or whatever. It'll just be the weed festival.
Yeah, and I think that's very valid, and it seems to be the case that was going that way beforehand. Many festivals were already 420 festivals were already quite consumer centric, with a lot of things for sale, and going that way in legal states as well, where a lot of big name music acts and other things are now the norm at these kind of things.
Yeah, and that's what I'm really looking forward to seeing. Not only just because, you know, Canada has legalization, but we have some really fucking good musical talent here. Like, I would love to go to like a just like some of those Canadian rappers or some of that Canadian like rock music and just get really baked and not have to be like at the back room of like, like a Fleetwood Mac concert, like just puffing or eating some edibles or something, it'll just be wicked. I'm thoroughly looking forward to it. Ariel, I got to cut you off right away, brother, unless you want to kick around for a little bit after the 4 o'clock hour. But how can people get a hold of the joint? How can people follow you guys? I mean, other than your website, you want to shell it all out for me?
So yeah, the website basically is all the information we have, and we also maintain social media accounts on all the major social media websites, restricted to adults 18 or 19 years of age, of course, depending on your jurisdiction. And we also have, you can sign up for email notifications, of course, if you're interested, through the website to get news on anything that's going on in any province that you're interested in, or in multiple provinces. So those are the best ways to get in touch with us directly, or you can visit stores when they open back up again. But until then,
like that little add-on when they open up it.
It's still possible to order online and pick up at a lot of our locations. So and our cannabis stores remain open in Alberta and Saskatchewan, I believe, as they are considered essential services.
Okay, and now I gotta ask, just because I gotta ask, how long do you think it'll take the government here to give you guys a license finally?
That's a perennial question, Stephen. You probably know as well as I do. So I could only speculate. But as we discussed earlier, I think that I think that was going to happen eventually. Anyway, I think almost every province with private system has eventually opened it up now, to some extent, or at least announced plans for when they are going to open up. And I assume Manitoba would be no different. And again, post this COVID situation, I think governments will be eager to move forward with any sort of business development that will result in increased economic activity. And I think the cannabis industry is a very right target for that, considering that you already have this economic activity in the informal market. So transferring that and creating more accessibility by licensing more retail stores, I think should and will be a priority.
Agreed. I think the economic prosperity there is just too hard to ignore now. The conservative, worried about society falling apart people have lost the argument since that didn't happen. So there's not much opposition there anymore, other than from some religious fundamentals. That's okay.
Yeah, well, I think that's again, it's why you have to focus on following the rules that are there and making sure that you're operating as a good corporate citizen and in the communities that you operate and being a net benefit to those communities. And I think many communities would love to have that kind of corporate citizen rather than the current people that are selling cannabis.
Agreed.
Who aren't paying taxes, who aren't contributing to the local community in those ways nearly as often, not that they never do. So so with that being said, fingers crossed.
Well, my fingers are crossed for you right now, brother. I hope you guys get it. I hope the joint expands across the country more so than it already is. That way, whenever I'm traveling, I know I can look up and find that fucking yellow and black logo, fucking making it. You know what? I like it because as a vision guy, I have a hard time recognizing things, okay? But your logo is fucking recognizable from a mile away, okay? That's why I like it.
And that's why we picked it, and it's worked very well for us so far. So hopefully it continues to do so. And I hope as well as you that we expand across the country and you can find us anywhere you are. So thanks again, Stephen, for having me.
Oh, hey, Ariel, you are a pleasure, brother. We go way back. I appreciate, say hi to Bart and Mike and all them for me. Greatest guys, proud Winnipeg boys. Let's keep this going. Let's keep making sure that our community is served well by the things that we keep doing, man. So thank you.
For sure. Thanks, Stephen. Have a great rest of 420.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it. 4 more hours.
Have a good one.
All right. Later, man.